My greatest strength is my ability to persevere through hardships. In January of 2021, I received Tommy John surgery on my right elbow. And when I began my return to throwing program, my right shoulder began to hurt with every throw I took. So I thought that I could fix the pain by, trying to move a little differently and throw around it. And all that ended up doing was giving me the yips. And if I can best describe the yips, imagine like you're thinking about every step you take when you walk, and you end up walking like this. It's horrible. It's terrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And I began to hate throwing. The only thing I loved, I hated, but I didn't want to quit. So I knew that I had to fix it. And I quite literally had to rewire my brain because my body didn't trust itself to throw a ball. So it was horrible. It was just so hard. And I cried a lot. However, I was finally able to do it by just thinking, just take this ball, throw it through the target, be athletic, think about nothing else. And eventually it worked out, and thankfully, and now I'm throwing harder than ever, I'm moving better than ever, I'm moving more fluidly than ever, but most importantly, I'm a much stronger person for it, having gone through all that. And I think that would transfer really well to an office setting, as no matter how daunting the task is, I would be able to get it done. Next, my biggest weakness is my introversion. So when most people think of the introvert, they think of like the shy, kind of like quiet type of person, but that's not me. If you want to look at the introvert in terms of like the pure like social battery, being alone charges my battery, and being social just completely wipes it out. So if you were to see me on the baseball field, I'd be all rah rah, I'd be super loud, I'd be cheering everyone on. And then if you were to ask me to hang out after the game, I would say no, because I would be completely wiped out. I would have nothing left. And this leads me to becoming sort of an outcast, because at these gatherings, like my teammates are making inside jokes that then, like they make my practice. I'm like, what's going on? And then, they create really strong bonds, and as their bonds grow stronger, I get pushed away. So next, a time that I did not work well with a supervisor was with my coach when I showed up in the fall. So my coach and I were initially really good friends, not to brag, but I was supposed to be like the centerpiece of the pitching staff, and we were supposed to be really good. However, I wasn't healthy, and it progressed from I'm gonna be ready now to I'm gonna be ready a little later, to eventually I can't pitch at all this spring. And he was incredibly frustrated and began sending me very passive-aggressive texts saying that I have the injury mindset and that I'm a bad teammate. And I didn't take that very lightly, and I told him that I come here every day miserable because I can't play, but I'm cheering these guys on with everything I have, because if I can't be there for them on the field, I'm going to be there to support them. And he said he understood and that he was sorry, and that he was just frustrated that I wasn't going to be there. And after that, our relationship became much better. Next, a time when I dealt with conflicting priorities was when it's essentially just my life in general. So given that I'm a student athlete and I take pre-med classes and I work, my days are filled to the brim. So I had a physics test on a Thursday, and it was currently Monday, and I work on Monday nights and Thursday nights, and then I train in the afternoons and go to class in the morning on Mondays and Wednesdays. So I knew that I would have a little bit of time to study Wednesday night, and I knew that I would have a lot of time to study Thursday, and I would have a little bit of time, but a little more Wednesday, and then Thursday was game time. So I got it done. I got everything done, and luckily I was able to get a 94 on the test, and I ended up doing really well in that class, which I'm very proud of myself for doing. Lastly, the best way I could describe myself, for lack of better terms, is that I'm just a grinder. So the only thing I've ever wanted to be in my life is a Major League Baseball player. And everything I've done since I was 17 has pretty much been in accordance with that, or what I thought was best. So when I was 17, I quit the baseball team because I knew I wasn't good enough to go anywhere from there, and playing wasn't going to get me there. So I just trained. And eventually, when the training wasn't working out, I decided that I needed to move across the country to come train at this facility called Driveline. And while training there, I lived in the basement of this lady's house that I didn't know. I slept on living room floors because I didn't have anywhere else to stay, but I couldn't have been happier because I was chasing my dream. And eventually I went from throwing 76 miles an hour to throwing 91 miles an hour and receiving multiple scholarship offers.